Welcome to Soul Brew, where healing conversations flow as freely as the tea. Join us as we dive deep into the depths of the human experience, one sip at a time. Grab your favorite mug, settle into a cozy spot, and chime in on a conversation that will nourish your soul. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Soul Brew. I am Rae, your host. I'm here for another healing conversation over tea. I have Britt here. Britt is a life alignment coach and escapist photographer. How do you say it?
Escapist, yeah, escapism.
Escapist. Yes. And Britt and I met in a networking group, and our energies just clicked just instantly. We had some good energy where we were just vibing in conversation. So I asked her to come on here and talk to us, and record this for y'all to listen. So welcome, Britt. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks. I was honored for the invite, and I'm tickled to see how our conversation unfolds. It's going to be fun.
Yes, it's really fun because we did a lot of talking before. So there's so many different ways this could go. So we'll see how organically it just flows.
How's that for a hook? There's so many ways this can
There's so many ways this could go. But yeah, to start, maybe just if you can just share with everyone, share with me, a little bit about the work that you do as a life alignment coach and escapist photographer.
Absolutely. So my coaching practice is called Pattern and Purpose, and I really kind of honed in on three different types of clients in the life alignment sort of umbrella, and that is people pleasers, people who struggle with goal follow through, and people who struggle with time management. And I have a vibe blocking framework that I call it, which is sort of an alternative to thinking about our capacity from really just a time constrained way and thinking about it from a more top-down view type of way. I work with a lot of type A creatives, and I'm sure you can relate. When the creative muses strike, it might not be because you have an hour of time blocked between noon and 1 o'clock. So that's something that I'm exploring. It's on offer in my packages and with anybody who wants to talk about it. And then my second business is Britt Sky Photography. I am in love with macro botanical photography, and I initially just started it as a mindfulness practice and something that I carried with me when my husband and I moved from Florida to Oklahoma. He's serving in the Air Force, so I call myself, the Sunshine State in the Sooner State. And I use the macro photography to get into the plants and all of the tropical things in my house to connect me back to home. And enough people were starting to ask me where they could find my work, so I started making it available online.
Nice. So do you sell your prints, or is this like you do pictures for other people?
Yeah, so I actually do prints and I do digital downloads. I work predominantly with plants, so my subjects are pretty stationary. I don't have to do much directing, but I have a wallpaper collection that's available on a platform called Spousely, which is a military and first responder marketplace similar to Etsy. And then I have my own website where I do sell prints through a drop shipper. I have an amazing print lab that I work with. It's so if you're a photographer and you've never printed your work, print your work, because you're going to be seeing it in digital and thinking, man, I'm terrible. But the moment you print it, you're like, whoa, this is great.
You know what? I feel like this connects to what we were talking about earlier about legacy work, having it be from your journal writings, but then actually just putting it out there and just having it be out there and spreading the word. So, and I think this also points to your love for plants, right? So,
oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, when we first moved out here, I converted my kitchen nook into a plant nook, and I had just under 200 houseplants. Then when I started my businesses and I started getting busier, I had to downsize. But yeah, I love houseplants. They're my connection back to home, and they soften the edges.
Houseplants, though?
Yeah, mostly. I do have an arid garden outside, but because it gets so cold and so hot here, I have them in terracotta pots and move them inside and out. I am not so good with horticultural gardening and doing herbs and veggies and stuff like that. But if you have questions about pothos and monstera, I actually do have a banana next to me. I can definitely talk about plants forever.
I love that. So I actually think it's interesting that you don't do herbs and things. My mom, she loves gardening. It's so fun. I'm grateful for her gardening, but she does like arugula and chard, and I could come over there for a salad. She'll just go and pull together some tomatoes and some things. So what's the disconnect there? Because to me, I don't know, I'm not a plant person. It seems like the same thing.
Yeah, so to me, I think it's a matter of variables. When you're dealing with gardening, you're at the mercy of more pests, you're at the mercy of weather. There's, especially to like people who do rotational gardening, there's a lot more logistics involved where with houseplants, you're really thinking about substrate, light, watering schedule. Like you have more factors that you can control.
Okay.
So it's just, I think it's that. And then also for me, being born and raised in Central Florida, it was so easy to grow everything outside. But when you live somewhere that there are seasons, you have to be a lot more mindful about what can I plant here, and it's not just going to grow all year like it does out there.
Yeah,
So there's a lot more logistics involved. I think is really where the divide happens in my brain, anyways.
that makes sense. Yeah. Well, let's talk about one of the things we really connected on was authentic self. Like we both acknowledged that we are building our businesses from our authentic self, that we are taking that inner guidance, all of the lessons that we've learned, and we put it into our business so that yeah, so that it's this expression of us. So can you speak a little bit about your journey of like finding your authentic self? Because I know that's part of it. That's the journey.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't know that I found her yet. It is definitely a journey, and it is. We talked a little bit too about how there's this sort of undoing where just thinking about development from the early stages of being a child, your entire purpose once you realize you're a conscious being is fitting in and feeling safe as part of the group and doing what everybody else is doing and following those metrics of success and those landmarks. So it's been a slow unfolding. I think one of the biggest things for me was I was raised Catholic, and moving away from the church and really starting to explore religion and spirituality outside of the framework that I knew. And then from there, I decided in my 20s that I knew I didn't want to be a mom. And that wasn't a really common experience at the time, choosing to be child free. So it's been kind of crunchy at moments, trying to figure out who I am against the backdrop of what everybody else is doing, but ultimately trusting the process and understanding that I do have something to offer. And it's sometimes in my differences that I have more to offer as well.
Yeah, that's it. That's the unraveling that you're talking about. The unraveling of like, this is what I thought it was going to look like, or this is what they told me, or what the world was pointing to. But I feel like it's almost behind our first no, our first like, no, I will not do it that way. I don't know what way I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it not that way. Because then it becomes
Yeah.
the uncovering of, well, now what do I want? And I find that a lot in sessions that I do within my practice is that we untangle the things, but then we get locked up in, now that you have space, now that there's something there that we've released, and that now we understand that the sky is the limit and I can create what I want to create, then it becomes, what do I want? And I think a lot of
Yeah.
us get locked up there. So how did you uncover what you wanted to do with your space when you started unraveling?
Hmm. I think there's kind of a thread that's carried through my whole life, which is knowing that I wanted to create something for myself, and I wanted other people to have that invitation as well. Of like when you look at all of the popular people that we look up to them because they innovated and because they did things differently. And I remember sitting in classes in high school just thinking it was so funny that we were taught to conform and taught to follow the path, but then the very people that we were reading about and looking up to were the ones who broke the mold and did things differently. So I think my two buttons that I talk about all the time are condescension and hypocrisy. And I started identifying those two things very quickly, in probably as a teenager. And instead of just having this rage about them, it's something that I use as an accountability point for myself. So I think in the process of unraveling and uncovering what I want to do with my life, it's really just been leaning into finding what I want to do authentically in the small moments. We went through COVID where we had the big phrase of non-essential workers coming out and really sort of ranking people in importance based on what they do. And while there's no denying that there are certain aspects of basic survival that we need to have first, Maslow's hierarchy of needs before we meet, self-edification, I don't think it needs to be a scale of what's more important or what's less important or what you have to do first before you can relax and retire. So I think for me, instead of chasing the degrees and chasing, all the milestones that you're supposed to hit in the 21st century, it's been about finding things in the moment that bring me joy and taking them to the extent of that. If it no longer brings me joy, if it's not supporting my life in some way, why do I have to badger myself to keep going?
It's a really good point. And what I love, like, is that you have identified the hypocrisies, and then what I see now is that it's something that you've kind of explored in your mind, and you see it happening, and now you're in the doing, the doing of it, the actual creation and actions of that. And so I know that it's this cycle of like doing or like no, create like making the space and then going out there and doing and seeing things different and then going out there doing. So yeah, I appreciate this. Just I appreciate knowing because I feel like a lot of times that was my path and that is my path and I'm still on. But meeting people that are aligned in that has been so nice. It's been
Yeah, and you touched on something so important too, and I think it's the doing. I feel like one of the things that I've been kind of focusing on in some of my writing and content this week that I'm sharing with people is, what do we do when we have these big revelations and these big epiphanies and these like light bulb aha moments? A lot of times we just absorb the inspiration and then we don't do anything with it. So I get it. It can be intimidating when you have this like person on day 100 and you're on day one, but it helps to have people who can ground you back to what your immediate step is after you have that inspirational hit or that intuitive tug.
yeah. Well, that's beautiful. What would you say is the thing or multiple things that kind of keep you inspired to keep going?
Probably a little bit of an existentialist mindset and just knowing that there's so much beyond our comprehension and beyond what we will ever get to know. And we're here now. And it seems like such a waste to spend time like nitpicking about little insignificant things or, being afraid to do something purely because when you boil it down to it, it's about how you're afraid of being perceived when in reality, not that many people are actually paying attention to you.
If
So yeah,
anybody.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like you're your biggest observer to your own life.
Yeah, I think that one was key for my finding my authentic self is that yes, I used to think that everybody was looking at me and everybody was worried about what I was worried about, but it was only me. It was only me being
Yep.
critical and judgmental and it's really fun. I was having lunch, actually pool time with one of my friends yesterday and we were talking about this. We were talking about just being yourself, being okay with being yourself. And she was like, "I'll challenge you. Let's do something. Let's go to like the beach or someplace out where there's lots of people, and let's just dance and walk and dance and walk and just completely." Be us, which, and I think back in the day, I would be like, no, there's absolutely no way that I will do that. Like, too many eyes on me. But with all this work I've been doing, I was all in. I was like, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't really care at this point, and I realize nobody really cares about me. Not in a bad way, but
Yeah.
nobody cares that I'm dancing and
Yeah.
doing my own thing there.
Yeah, and I mean it makes a ton of sense because sometimes I feel like we live in a society that thinks indifference or apathy is like a bad thing, but it's not. It's literally in the middle of the road. It's complete neutrality.
Hmm.
And I think that's part of the problem too, is everybody feels like they have to have an opinion about something. Everybody feels like they have to have something to present or to perform or to aim towards. And when I was really thinking about the types of clients that I wanted to serve, I've worked with entrepreneurs, I've worked with people who are advancing through their careers, but ultimately when it boils down to it, they're still human beings. That's one slice of the pie that they're dealing with. And I I was having a conversation with a hairstylist a couple months back, and she was talking about how she wanted to start like recording and posting like her everyday life, and putting it out there because it is significant. And I thought there was a beauty in that, but there's also a little sadness in the fact that in order to validate the significance of your life, you feel like you have to record it and you have to post it. I think about like the earth has been around for how long? Humans have been around for how long? And none of the people that we don't know, the nameless people who've passed before us, aren't any less significant because there's not a record of them. And I certainly don't think they would care if they had a TikTok, you know?
That's true. That is true. Like we don't have access to all those people. Um, yeah. Would you say that that's something that comes up in the work that in your coaching work when you're helping people find the alignment? Because I know you're pattern and purpose, and
Mhm.
is that a common thread in the work that you do?
I would say so. If it's not in the capacity of, feeling like you've got to be optics focused as a professional or as a creator, it's certainly something that I see come up in people I work with who are just dealing with their families. Like there's some sort of performance or notoriety that they're, wanting to achieve and accomplish within the scope of their little family unit. And that's not quite the same as saying like you want to be appreciated and want to be seen for the way that you pour back into your family. But sometimes the motivation comes from a place of feeling like if it's not noted what I'm doing, then it must not be significant. And then you
Mm-hmm.
start peeling off the layers and start asking the questions of, well, how do you define significance? What is significance to you? And that's when you find that it's completely 180 from everything they've been doing, and their lack of fulfillment didn't have anything to do with external validation and had more to do with not being aimed where they actually wanted to be headed to begin with.
So it really comes down to that self-mastery,
Yeah.
like understanding self, understanding what we're doing, why we're doing it. Do we still want to do that? Um,
Yeah.
and uncovering that. And I think that kind of points to what we were talking about before about the unraveling of self. You get to have all those conversations to bring those things up there. So I'm in my brain unraveling it right now.
Yeah.
I can see.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other component that I'm noticing too, because I notice it even within myself, is the constraints that we put on our expectations that pertain to time. I was meeting with one client recently, and it was actually refreshing to hear that, the thing that she wants to do, she's like, I don't care if I do it in a year. I don't care if I do it in 5 years. I want it to be authentic. I want it to be real, and I want it to be me. And that's so counter to so many other self exploration methods and goal setting and accomplishment metrics that are out there right now. They're all, rightly so focused on, committing yourself to a timeline. But I don't necessarily think that's something you have to bring into your personal life. Like the other thing I've noticed is how so much professional coaching and corporate language has made its way into our personal lives, talking about optimizing, talking about data, it's like
Yes.
we're humans, we're not machines, we're not computers.
Oh, that's my gripe a lot right now, especially within the coaching business. Because I specifically have built my business to not have that corporate mindset, and I'm coming from more like feminine flow approach. So when I start shifting almost like back to my corporate mindset, I catch it and I'm like, no, like what's the new way? And then that comes back to checking in with myself again and, remembering why I built this, why, what was what was coming through me that's different than what the world was telling me. So it's like a constant regrounding of self for me. And then I'm able to come from that space of love and groundedness as I help all my clients and as we navigate different things. So, with that said, let's talk grounding. Let's talk about like what keeps you grounded to be an entrepreneur. I know that takes a lot to stay rooted in your own purpose and your own patterns. So what would you say are your some of your top things that come up for you?
Yeah, well, number one, I am very fortunate to have found my husband. He is very much of the same mindset as me, of, like I say, from whose line everything's made up and the points don't matter. He has been such an advocate for me, just finding something I love and something that I want to do. And he never doubts my ability to pull things off. And he's also my filter sometimes, which is great. But even just taking like the first steps into, throwing the switch, feeling like, okay, this, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's better late than never. It felt gimmicky at the time, but it has so much truth to it, which is getting in the rooms with people who have the same objectives as you. If you're not working in the same industry, it doesn't matter, but it can be interesting sometimes talking to people who might still have internal blocks about their own agency versus getting in a room with people who are like, we're going to start a business. Like you're putting your shoes on in the morning, that just being in that energy and being in that space where people are using language and you don't have to justify every decision. You can just, I'm an entrepreneur. This is what is. So being in different networking groups like the one we met in, and just having friends that have walked the path before have really helped me see like it's not that big a deal. It sounds like it's such a big deal when you're at the front of it, but once you get into it, you're like, it's not that big a deal. It's just another thing you can do. It's just another way of working. It's another way of creating. So those two in particular, and then honestly, nature, for fear of sounding cheesy. What grounds me is the ground. My husband will come home sometimes and it's a warm day and I'm literally laying in the backyard like a lizard. So yeah.
I love that so much, and it's just so true. I mean, like, what keeps you grounded is literally the ground. It's the nature. Talking about like dancing, like I admittedly I have this tree in my park that I just go over to and I just dance. I listen to my music, have my headphones on. I just feel like I'm hanging out with my tree, and that is always the thing that I do to when I'm in the spins. I've got caught in the spins. Somehow I'm back in old patterns and just pulling me out real quick. And nature, it's the go-to. But I love that you also mentioned your husband, because people in my life are just so important too. I think that they notice it first when I am not grounded. So being able to have someone that's like, hey, just come up for air. I have a friend that he's always like, I see see you down there just trying to go deep, but just come up for air
Yeah.
and breathe again. And then at that
Yeah.
point, I'm like,
And
okay, I'll soften.
yeah, I'm so curious too, because obviously you do the energy work and then doing the hypnotherapy, that's getting into the really deep trenches of the subconscious.
Yes.
So how do you create those barriers around you to have that detached involvement, but still also
Yeah.
show up fully and authentically with clients?
That's it. Like that is my everyday practice. So Reiki in itself is the foundation of, I feel like, just me at this point, and Reiki is essentially the energy work. So it is the unconditional love that then I give myself. So in a practical sense, this looks like every day I'm filling myself up. Every day I'm giving myself Reiki. Every day I'm doing the grounding myself, doing the tree thing, like whatever it is that I need to feel solid, to remember who I am, to know me solidly. And because the idea is that if I know myself so well, then any other energies outside of what I know is not mine. It's foreign. So I'm able to dissect like what's yours and what's mine. Like even like coming into this room, I will check on my energy before. I'll see like, okay, I've got a little sadness, I've got a little anger, maybe like I know my energy. So then if I come into a room with someone else and I all of a sudden I'm anxious, I'll know that that wasn't mine and I just picked that up. So there's this thing of like the empathy there that I do. But now that I know that, that separates me from my clients. So being able to help people do this kind of deeper subconscious work, that's my detachment from it. And I'll be honest, that was my first was my first kind of reason why I didn't want to do this work. I thought it would be too hard on me. I thought that I pick up everybody's energy all the time. I don't want to do that. But once I learned how to separate my energy from other people, it's been a game changer. And then what I do though is that I have this like pact with my clients and anybody I start with within the first session. I always say, if my energy's off, I will cancel or reschedule. And that's just, it's just the integrity piece at this point because we're doing energy work and I don't want to just because it's on the schedule to do it. It's really checking in with myself and saying, okay, I could give today because I want the energy to come from my overflow and not for me. So that would be
Yeah, I love
the
that.
number one thing I point to and I share and I teach all the time. So, because are you familiar with
Yeah.
Reiki at all?
I've done a little bit of reading. I haven't experienced it, but I have a friend here who's a practitioner, and we've talked a little bit about it. And it really is fascinating to me because my background, my bachelor's degree is in psychology. And I knew very explicitly that I didn't want to go into the counseling setting for pretty much all the reasons that you cited. I'm such a sponge. And I was like, how am I going to be able to navigate? So hearing her talk about the ways that she separates her energy and how that also allows her to open up her intuition, it almost kind of touches on a little bit of what sounds like Adlerian psychology with the separation of tasks and knowing where the other person begins and where you begin,
Yes,
and
that's
there's a
exactly it.
division there.
It's
Yeah,
it
that's
in
awesome.
daily practice and that's what I mean. Like there's some days where I might wake up and I'm like and I don't do my practices and then I'm going through the day and I wonder why I'm cranky. I wonder why like stuff is going on and that's where again the community shows up because I I have people in my life that will say like, did you do your routines today? Because they could see me, they
Yeah.
know me.
Yeah, like just yesterday, like I can't remember what I was doing, and I call it like being crunchy, right? It's such a
Mhm.
millennial phrase. And I was sitting around, and my husband came over, and he's like, "What's up?" And I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "Why are you crunchy?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then I realized like, oh, I'd been doing a lot of social media work,
Mhm.
and that's one of the things like in the vibe blocking framework that I have. It's naming your vibes and identifying them, and social media falls into my vibe that I call forced. So
Yeah.
I'm like, well, no wonder I was crunchy because I spent a majority of my day in that energetic state. Duh.
Feeling the forced. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then again,
Yeah.
that points back to the self-awareness, the self-mastery, the knowing myself so well that I could see and I could see that it's happening. And there used to be that time when I didn't see where I would be crunchy and angry and all of the things and have no idea. But the way that I practice it, it's really nice knowing that most of the time it's not mine. It's just plain and simple. Like I love my life.
Yeah.
Things are well. There's not much frictions that I actually have. So when I start feeling it, I'm like, oh, that has to be someone outside. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even like when your blood sugar gets low or when you didn't sleep that well, like it's just another a perspective point for
Yeah.
you to get back to and just be like, let me just use the radar and just do like the full system scan and
Yeah.
figure out like what's going on. Did I eat? Did I sleep? Did I check in with myself spiritually? Did I check in with myself mentally? And it sometimes I think the problem when you get into the space that we're in is people make it feel like this big lofty spiritual practice. Like I always joke of like the monk that survives off of the dew on a lotus. And it's like, yes, that is a way of being a
Mhm.
spiritual person, but it's not the only way. We all have to connect with things on our personal level in order to, like you're pointing out, know you.
Yeah. Yeah, for me too, check-ins. Like if you know me, then you know I'm always like checking in with myself. But specifically to the work that we do in between clients, it's really important for me to not only now in session, so picture us, we're in session and I could see all the things that I'm picking up or wanting to pick up from you. And then that in between session, that time to cleanse, that time to meditate, that time to check
Mhm.
in with myself. Like, did one of the stories trigger me? Did it bring up something that was tender for me? And then to work through it in that moment, then to decide, do I need to tend to myself? Do I need to call for someone to help walk through this with me? Or can it be something I wait until later? And just being very tender and gentle with myself is the best ways to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think right now I have programmed half-hour breaks between
Mm,
sessions because that, first of all, I love writing and I do all of my note taking by hand. It gets it out of my brain, out of my body onto paper, and then I can recall it so much better and helps with that personal connection and that trust building with clients. But
mhm.
there's always a bit of inspiration too that happens after I meet with clients
Right.
that'll maybe be a lesson or something that I feel I want to present to the broader audience because it's something that, I've been thinking on or something, I believe in synchronicities. If you've experienced something, at least 3 times, there's probably some
Yeah.
reflection or some exploration there. So yeah, there is the same for me. It's like I, do a little bit of breath work, ground myself, separate myself so that I'm a fresh slate for the next person, but also not judging the experience and allowing to see what lesson and what inspiration can come from it too.
God, that's such a good point, the inspiration. And that also brings us like full circle. And we started this conversation with like that's the doing. So that is the like taking in the experience, slowing down to experience it, integrate it, see what's there, and then share it. Share it with the world, do some doing. Um, yeah, that's beautiful. Oh my goodness. Well, we are nearing the end of our time. That went by so quick. My goodness.
I know. I'm like, not yet. No.
I love this. I was sharing earlier to share with everyone now that I think like my guilty pleasure of this is that I get to make friends. Like I get to find people that I just align with or I just loved energy. Like I was saying that I just love Britt's energy and I am immediately messaged her as soon as I got off the call. So yeah, because I could see how this is our first conversation, but this definitely won't be our last. I could already feel it.
I
So,
love it too because small talk is painful, but I feel like this is such a great format for be like, we don't have to go like, what's your favorite color? What's your sign? Just jump right into the deep conversation. I love it.
I despise small talk. Like, I really am such a go with the flowy person. So even if like we had a plan, I would be like, oh my God, a plan. Like, what do we do?
Yeah, same, same.
So, but let's at least end by, do you want to share anything with the audience? Any final thoughts or anything about anybody on their journey? Maybe just something you want to share. So,
Yeah. I think the biggest piece of advice that I'm really loving giving right now is that whole everything's made up and the points don't matter thing. If you could sit down and just imagine that your life is this singular game that you get to make up the rules for, what's possible? Stop limiting yourself by everything you see online, by what you see generations before you doing. Just everything's made up. Nobody knows what they're doing. Do you?
yeah, no, that's beautiful and so true. So very, very true. Well, I absolutely loved having you here, and I look forward to connecting more in the future. Thank you for joining us today for a soul nourishing episode of Soul Brew, where healing conversations flow as freely as the tea. I hope you found solace, wisdom, and inspiration in our dialogue. And until next time, take a moment to sip slow, breathe deep, and embrace the healing power of connection. Stay tuned for more heartwarming conversations over tea. And until then, may your cup overflow with peace and serenity. Take care.